So mean waters above back again. You guys are probably seeing some interesting activity in your portfolios, or whether you're just paying attention to the news, crypto, Twitter, your YouTube, your social media. A lot of opinions in terms of where we are. Maybe this is it. You've got people taking profits saying, haha, see you in 4 years. It's all over. You have people with tons of excitement saying Bitcoin can go to $1 million. And, mean waters are back just to keep you guys a little bit level headed and just recap. The last time we were together, it was just before the election. I believe it was around October or so. And we were talking about how things were very likely to start getting moving just because of the seasonality of things. That is a time where Bitcoin likes to get moving. And that is a time where even the traditional market tends to rebound from whatever's happened in September or October. And that was pretty much what was on cue for us, particularly coming after rate cuts. So yeah, we're just back to kind of share our thoughts on the market. I know you've been busy a lot with your own university. I'll cover some of the astrology things. In my personal chart, the astrology's had me kind of stepping away from what I do publicly and more focused on the home front because that's what the nodes do. But yeah, it's good to catch up with you, check in with you, and get your thoughts on the market.
Yeah, man. I mean, first of all, I hope you're doing well. It's been quite a bit since we last connected. I believe we had like a little bit of a market chat, and then we also did, I had you on my university as one of our first special guests. So it was great to connect with you there. And yeah, it feels like a lot of things that have been, a lot of things have gone down since then, but our general discussion was where we are today. Just more bull run ahead. And obviously, there's going to be some detours along the way. I think we're getting a little bit of that vibe right now, but I believe it'll be wrapped up quite soon. As this Mercury retrograde is about halfway, not necessarily halfway through, but getting close. And yeah, I would love to know some of your thoughts. So what you've been seeing in the market since we literally haven't spoken between now and that last chat. So
Yeah,
yeah,
really.
man, let's pick up where we left off.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me to the university chat. That was pretty cool. Just having people's questions come through and even just a recap of how things have played out for myself and the both of us. Just a fun chat, just fun to connect with that group and just share what I've learned along my way. Not that I'm an expert about anything, but really in my opinion, when we're living our own unique lives, just reflecting on that has tons of information for the next human being. If we're really being authentic about our unique experience, right? There's always something that to offer and that
Sure.
we'll learn from that, right? So yeah, I really, really appreciated that. That was fun. And just picking off of your Mercury retrograde comment, one thing I've noticed from a financial astrology standpoint is retrogrades, they will often, depending on how they're impacting the charts of a nation or an individual, they can bring a bit of a pause or a delay or this sense of let me look over these things. And that depends on where Mercury is located in the sky because each of the different signs have their different flavors due to their elemental balance. So what is Leo? Leo is a fire sign and it's a fixed concentrated fire sign and it has a correlation to the fifth house, which what that means is this is the area that comes after what is known as the fourth house, our foundations, our building blocks, what we rely on in life. And so what that fifth house energy tends to involve in is things like play or hobbies, projects, or speculation. Leo has a lot to do with the heart, right? It has a lot to do with kingdoms and how we manage that. So Mercury retrograding Leo is asking us about what are we speculating on? What are our hobbies? What sets our heart on fire? What do we believe in? What are we putting the extra excess we have, the extra love, energy, or money that we have into for fun or into because we want to see it grow? And so that is why the fifth house, along with the second, the eighth, and the 11th, are houses to look at if you understand how astrology charts work as it relates to finances. So what this Mercury retrograde in Leo has us all doing, or has the opportunity for us to do if you know this information, is take a look at your portfolio. Are you too altcoin heavy? Did you dump all your alts and now you're hearing some of your friends' alts are moving up and you're wondering what to do? There's all sorts of things in terms of people's ability to speculate or their portfolios where they might be reflecting now. And one of the things I've seen that's interesting about Mercury retrogrades too is very often, depending on how they're impacting the chart, halfway through the retrograde, we might see a reversal in markets. And I think that's kind of what's on the table right now. We've seen ETH move up and hit a resistance line around its previous all-time high. We've seen altcoins move up. We've seen, whales take profits. Altcoins are moving up kind of a bit again. They're probably going to take profits again, and that's typically how the cycle goes is Bitcoin makes the move, then the layer ones move up, retail investors get interested, and then once retail brings in their liquidity, the whales take that liquidity from them, and then we move down. And then we make another move higher after, that exhaustion. So that's kind of what it's looking like for me right now. And even when I look at the traditional aspects of how the planets are interplaying for the first week of August or so, it doesn't look that great. But after that, Jupiter conjoins Venus. Jupiter is a planet of expansion, and Venus is also a planet of goodness. It's that feminine, generous kind of magnetic energy that magnetizes us towards things that we desire and that we like. So these two planets coming together in the eighth house of shared resources in America's chart tells us that America and the American economy, U.S. equities, stable coins, which are now an American product, which help boost Bitcoin. These are things that will all very likely to expand over, let's say, the next 2 or 3 weeks. So let's say mid-August, after the 11th or so, markets should really start making aggressive moves to the upside again. The retrograde will be over. So if you're watching this during the retrograde, you got about 2 weeks to kind of figure out what you want to do here before things start really getting away from us again. I wouldn't be surprised to see all-time highs towards the end of the month here after we've had a little bit of a shakeout in these, the next 2 weeks or so. We might see an all-time high in ETH, and that'll probably really get people excited towards the end of August, and then we'll probably head it into some chop or another pullback after a pretty significant high in early September, if not mid-September during eclipse season. So that's kind of how I'm seeing the next 2 months play out. Is in the short term, some pullback. Mid-August, we really start pushing, and then eclipse season is you're probably going to hear more of these bears coming out again and saying, all right, well, Bitcoin at 140, 150, we've topped out here. It's all over, kind of a thing. Those are my thoughts, man.
Yeah, that's a great summary and a beautiful way to start out this podcast. It's like immediate value. And while Sama was talking, I actually pulled up this chart here, which maybe we could go through some past iterations to share a pattern and some visuals for everybody, kind of show them more of my work. But what I did over here was actually during one of my Red Pill podcasts. So it's a podcast that I do every week over on my Patreon, and I just took the future Mercury retrograde and I broke it into phases. And before we even got here to this box of the Mercury retrograde time frame and the 2 week shadow following it, I told people this is sort of the energetics that we have. So it's not about looking at the price, it's just about the energetics. So we have this tendency to rise into Mercury retrograde, but about a week before, it's a bit of a fake out. And then we have a small correction into the start of Mercury retrograde, or when Mercury stations retrograde. And then for some reason, around day 4 to 5, we have a little bit of like, I call it like a pump fake, like a little bit of a fake out pump to the upside. And then it follows into the next dotted line over here, which would be phase two. And we return pretty much right back to similar prices as when Mercury was initially stationing retrograde. And then as we're passing through, which by the way, I purposefully pushed it to day 8 just so you can see this big wick to the downside, which we know like hammered the altcoins. So anyways, let me just push it back to exactly 7 days. We have this 7 day rise. We have a little bit of a fake out up. We have a correction into Mercury retrograde. And then during this first initial phase right here, as Mercury's station retrograde, it's a little bit of a fake out to the upside, pull back down. And then we enter what I'm calling phase 3. I'm just keeping it nice and simple and calling it the middle phase. Sometimes it could be 2 weeks, sometimes it could be 3 weeks. And then during this phase, it's kind of based on the data that we've collected prior. So whatever we have going in and during the first phase, into the second, we can then determine what's likely to unfold for phase three. So we're here now. But really quickly, one thing that's fascinating about Mercury retrograde and Bitcoin price action is as Mercury is stationing direct again, we tend to end up at almost similar prices as when we initially were stationing retrograde. So it's sideways. You could just say sideways. I do this chart might look a little complicated. It's the same chart, but I have overlaid some Venus retrograde timeframes. But I could just go through a couple iterations over here and show you that we do get one kind of, I don't want to call it an anomaly, but it's like 75% of the time we're sideways, and then 25% of the time it's quite bullish. And that's really cool to know because even during times where we have a big dump into Mercury retrograde, we will finish it off at similar prices as we started. But this Q4 one that we had at the end of 2024 is actually quite similar to the one that we had at the end of 2021, and also very similar to the one that we had at the end of 2017 into the top. So this box right here, really fascinating. Another thing to note for those that are interested in the really basic financial astrology, like the Bitcoin astrology stuff that I teach. This new moon during a Mercury retrograde is really important because we either treat it as a top followed by a very heavy bottom, or we tend to have a nice rise into it. So it's cool to have some basic understanding of what could happen during these phases. But generally, we're pretty sideways during these Mercury retrograde time frames, and the ones that we saw last year, the ones in 2024 are pretty crazy. Like look at this. We were crashing pretty much into the August new moon, but then we literally ended at the same price.
Yeah.
So if you mark the daily closes, this helps tremendously. Here we were correcting, we had a deeper correction in the midst of it, but as Mercury was stationing direct again, we popped right back up. So this was clearly sideways over here, obviously very sideways. But look at this, day 4 to 5, we have this little fake out pump to the upside. Day 4 to 5, we have this, or we'll call it the first week. We have this little fake out pump to the upside. Over here, it's the same thing. We have this little fake out pump to the upside. Over here, it's the same thing. So there's patterns here for Mercury retrograde. And hopefully this helps people because the only other two things we see, or the only other structure we see is during Q1 at the first Mercury retrograde of the Gregorian calendar year, or the last Mercury retrograde of the year. We are going very bullish, which is why, like, as I started to tap back into this analysis more, even though I've been pretty much following along every Mercury retrograde for the past 4 years, I think this one that we're going to get in November is going to be the all-time high. Just because the pattern that we've seen for Q4 last year, for this movement at the end of 2021, this movement at the beginning of 2021, it's pretty cyclical. So this means the one that we're having right now would make the most sense for it to be the like final Bitcoin dominance move to the upside. If we're
Yes.
gonna see Bitcoin dominance have any more strength, it would make the most sense for it to be concluded now. Not necessarily during Mercury retrograde, but before this next Mercury retrograde. And this is pretty wild, bro, because I know me and you have talked about this maybe a year ago. Maybe we started talking like 2 years ago, but it was definitely in one of our first conversations when I brought up the solar and the lunar cycles, right? And we're in my work, we're in a lunar cycle right now where we have very strong lunar eclipses. And that kicked off back in the lunar eclipse that we just had in March 14th, total lunar eclipse. And we're about to get another one in September, which you brought up a little bit earlier. But Bitcoin has never, ever in its history gone past the second total lunar eclipse of a lunar cycle bullish. So this could be the first time, and I'll wrap this thought up here by saying, well, in the last cycle, that was the first time we ever went up past the start of a lunar cycle. So this is a chart that I created. It's a really probably the most important chart for Bitcoin because it maps out every lunar cycle and every solar cycle. And you're seeing that after the final solar eclipse of a solar cycle, we peak and then we correct into this red box, which is the lunar cycle, triggered by a total lunar eclipse. And then here we see rising up into the start of a solar cycle. and then we peak before the start of the lunar cycle, around the prior to the total lunar eclipse. Here we had the same thing happen in the last cycle in April of 2021. This is probably the one people remember the most.
Yeah.
Then we had that total lunar eclipse in May. Bitcoin had about a 55% correction, sort of ended the cycle for altcoins for the most part. But we did get that double top. And we did technically follow the exoteric pattern of Bitcoin topping in Q4 4 years later, right? That's a fact.
Right.
So it's kind of like my way of saying, like, if Bitcoin tops in Q4 this year,
Mhm.
it's like the easiest fucking asset of all time to
Really,
predict.
it really is. I think the last time you and I spoke too, I said I wouldn't be surprised if it's in November.
Yeah, like, and it's making me start to be more open-minded to it also because Saturn retrograde. I'm not sure if you've done any work on that, but for some reason Saturn retrogrades the last 3 weeks are incredibly bullish. And
Mhm.
I believe I have a chart right here that
So
anyways, I don't want to take up too much time with this because I'm sure you have
well,
some.
that's a good point you just didn't finish there because I'm pretty sure that lines up with November, right? The end of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I believe it's November. I don't remember where I have the chart because I have way too many charts and we didn't really prepare too much for this one. But if I could find it, I will definitely
Yeah,
cover that for you guys because it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool how Saturn retrograde also plays a role in this.
yeah, that's pretty cool. And
Oh,
even just what you
yeah.
were saying about dominance, it would be highly unlikely for it to trend much higher. I know there's a lot of people who don't know the charts very well saying it could go back up to the 70s or 80s or no, that's not really the case. It's particularly now that Wall Street has just approved altcoin ETFs. I mean, you guys are going to get rugged by the rug pullers of rug pulling. I mean,
Yeah.
it's shifting now. And even as you look at the chart, we've broken a higher level of support there. So I think dominance might come back up to 62, 63, and then it's going to
Yeah.
push it. Oh, you got the chart up. Yeah, good, man.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm starting to also agree with you. Like, I don't think we need to always do the same thing all the time with Bitcoin dominance. And obviously, there's a lot, the market's so different between 2014, 2017, 2021, and now. Like, I mean, in the last cycle, it felt like a lot of altcoins, right? Like, there was like 20,000 or something. In this cycle, there's like 20 million.
Oh, buddy.
So it's
Yeah.
fucking absurd. And the fact that they're even gonna be pushing forward some ETFs on like straight up meme coins, like not even Doge,
Yep.
right? Because
Yeah.
like actual serious meme coins, it's pretty mind blowing. But anyways, like really quickly, I could just show you guys what I meant before with my kind of like quick thoughts on a Q4 all-time high for Bitcoin, and you could see that the this is spooky too because this is in alignment with kind of the cool little tips and tricks I was just giving people for Mercury retrograde, where it's like we rise into it day 5 or 7, first 5 days, we tend to have a little bit of a fake out, traps a lot of bulls. You get liquidations following it on the end of the first week. It's like it's clockwork, bro. And these happen like 4 times a year. So when 3 out of 4 of them are potentially gonna be a pattern like this, you might as well keep it in mind, right? Then you don't get spooked out. This is why recently, like my community has been pretty like neutral about all of this recent kind of correction. And I think a lot of these coins that I personally hold have pretty much rebounded and fully recovered as of today. But anyways, you can see day 21, 3 weeks prior, we have a little bit of a pivot into the end of Mercury retro, sorry, Saturn retrograde. Here, I'm going to go backwards about 3 weeks. It's fucking crazy. It's the same exact move. Here, obviously, we're during a bear market, and this was leading into a total lunar eclipse. So this is a little bit different vibes because we had Saturn retrograde starting on eclipse season and ending around an eclipse season. This is like a disaster with total lunar eclipses. So it's not the same setup this time around, in my opinion. But again, we have to see what Bitcoin does between now and September 7th, because if for whatever reason Bitcoin just like green dildos to heaven, then like you can guarantee that the alt season will just happen then and it'll be abruptly over very fast. Like that's kind of the nature of this market. Once Bitcoin dominance spills over, it's very, very violent. But yeah, here, final 3 weeks, it's pretty much the same exact setup. You could see get bottoming structure, rise, and then we did push a little bit higher. Over here, it's not so much a play, but I believe this time frame was really elusive because we had the C19 crash. And I'm also open-minded to this, by the way, where we do hit the all-time high during the Saturn retrograde time frame. And why not? Because look, it's extending all the way until November 30th. So who cares? It could happen in November new moon, right? This is a very typical thing we see with Bitcoin. We had the November new moon in 2021. We had the November new moon in 2014, right? Right over here. So if I zoom in, if I just show everyone on the daily chart, yeah, so the December new moon, it was a couple days shy, but pretty much right there in that same time frame. We're topping around that final new moon. And there's plenty of other iterations where we get these crazy parabolic moves in the final stages of Saturn retrograde. It's just it has to be where are we at in the cycle, right? If we're in mid-cycle, we have to take other things in consideration. If we're at the start of a, reset in a cycle energetically, we have to take that into consideration. So I guess the disclaimer here, and I'm sure you agree, is we never isolate just one thing and then put all of our chips in that. You have to, in my work, for instance, we're looking at TA too. Like we're not just taking
Yeah,
the astrology
exactly.
and then disregarding everything. Like when I'm seeing Bitcoin weekly chart RSI is
Hmm.
what is it right now? It's 68, dude. This
Yeah.
shit could go to 90. Like
Hmm.
this is Bitcoin. And
Yeah.
people that underestimate Bitcoin are always wrong. Except for the people that are too bullish, like,
Hmm.
Kathy Wood and Sailor and these guys. But anyone who knows like basic TA, you know that there's a lot of room to go. So
Exactly.
strange to think that we're at the top right now. It's 68 RSI, no euphoria, no
Right.
euphoria and
Yeah.
Bitcoin dominance still
Hmm.
holding up, unless there is no alt season. Which, what are your feelings about that? Because a lot of people now that we've had this recent pullback over the past week, they're like, it's impossible to have an alt season, or it's like a alt season's a scam.
No, I think they're, like you said, none of these cycles have to play out the same in the interim, but they all end the same. And I think
Hmm.
that's where people get thrown off is the cycles, if they all behave the same, then it would be very predictable. And that's not what markets do, right? So to me, it's not a coincidence that people are very thrown off by things when we just take a look at the chart. So is dominance showing for you right now on my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So when we look at what happened in 2017, I mean, it's obvious, right? So Bitcoin, when it came out in 2009 or whatever it was the main point of the market. So dominance is going to be near 100%. But during that first run, when we had the ICOs and, like token metrics and all that stuff was the thing, this is when alts really became, let's say they had their first moment in the sun or their first splash. And that's what really pushed dominance all the way down to like 35%. We're not going back to 35% dominance. I don't think that's reasonable. But what we see happen from 2018 to the 2020 and eventually the 2021 highs is that dominance jumped up and down. There was volatility here. So what this means is that there were moments along the way where the altcoin market was actually pumping and moving up and down as we finally got to all-time highs. That hasn't really been the case this run very much. It's been a steady churn up since the FTX collapse of Bitcoin buying, Bitcoin buying, Bitcoin buying, Bitcoin buying. And so then that makes me ask, well, what has really been the sentiment of the market? And it's been a lot of people bearish really since that collapse over the past 3 years saying Bitcoin's dead, alts are dead. They haven't seen their altcoin portfolios go up. There hasn't really been a lot of retail money coming in because the retail investors have been financially repressed by design by our governments. There are no stimmy checks floating around this time. They've been trying to tamper down inflation that they spiked up for what happened in 2020 and 2021. So people generally haven't had the same amount of cash, and the people who have been buying Bitcoin have been your micro strategies and the institutions learning how Saylor was doing what he was doing.
Right.
And this was all during, an administration where it wasn't Trump, it wasn't pro crypto. So things have really flipped since he's gotten put into office, and that's also by design because, well, now the treasury system is underlying the stable coins, and we need a buyer of United States debt, period. And so that's now going to be the American people and everyone who's interested in crypto by proxy of stable coins. So America has a vested interest in getting you to pick up the bag here. That's just how the game works. It's who's going to pick up the junk, right? How do we repackage it and who do we sell it to? So that's what Bitcoin is being used to for, bottom line. And that's why now Wall Street, who's been watching, people like me and you or regular average Joes make money off of alts for the past 8 years, they're going to get in the game now. So the idea that there's no alt season when these ETFs have just got approved, the president of himself has alts, has a basket of alts. I mean, come on, the writing's on the wall. The bill that he pushed got printed. That's a money printing bill. Crypto is going up, and they're going to use that money to scoop up things like American real estate and pay for the wars that they want to have later. This is all by design. So it's really, it's not even something I'm even rooting for because a lot of people are going to get rugged, and that money's going to get used for nefarious things. But we're just breaking this down for you guys so that you guys aren't, completely blindsided by this like the American public or the rest of the world will be when the bear market comes in 26. I mean, if you live through 22 and you watch your portfolio go up in 21 and then Powell announced rates are going up because inflation's too hot, then you know what's coming. It's the same fucking, excuse my language.
Yeah.
It's the same story, you guys. So that's why, as the stuff you pulled up with Saturn retrograde and what we're talking about and how we're just like, really, is it really going to end the same way? Yeah, it probably is because this is an algorithmic asset. And with the way the landscape is for all the governments, it favors them, the people who print currency, for things to play out this way. I'm not guaranteeing it, but it's really looking 99% most likely the
Right.
way you and I are spitting it out here, that's the way it's going to pan out. Specifically when you have most people not agreeing with us and seeing it that way. It's like even the sentiments against us. It's the contrarian sentiment. That's where we should be positioned to make the most amount of money. So really coming up to where I have more confidence than I've had even since last year and where things are going to pan out really. And that's just my viewpoint of it, which is a little dangerous, I'll admit, but I think you and I are pretty on the money
You
with what
gotta
I'm saying.
gotta live dangerously, bro.
That's fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, you brought up a couple cool, like really important points, and it's probably things that we've touched on in the past, and maybe we don't need to rant and rave about it too soon in today's podcast, but like kind of just like the moral packaging on all of this and like how strange it is to be aware. And it's something that like I launched my channel with knowing because I knew about these things before I even really knew about crypto. And that's actually what kind of got me into being a crypto investor because I was realizing like we're gonna move into an Aquarian economy and they're going to do what they can to, first of all, educate, but also distract some, also make things scary, also for enforce and put and push you into things. And I think all the stablecoin regulation stuff is pretty obvious, like what it's going to do. So it's hilarious that like this Trump guy is getting so much positive vibes, but like people don't understand that this is all just another way of saying CBDC, just not by saying CBDC. And I don't understand how people don't see this. But hey, fuck it, right? Because it's at the point now where it's like, what? Why should I even
That's
bother?
literally how that's yeah, yeah.
It's year four where I'm like, I shouldn't bother, should I? Like, I look myself in the mirror and I'm like, is it worth it this? Like, is it worth it this time? Because like it's I don't want to say this out of ego, but I think me and you could kind of meet here on this frequency of like, well, we're putting in the work to share our truth with the world, and it might not always be correct, it might not always be accurate, but it's not even about that. It's about expression. I feel
Yeah.
like me and you as musicians, we know this maybe a little better than some other people in the crypto space. It's like to us, it's more of an expression, right? So but as we continue to express and more things like AI and like everything else that's taking over this particular conversation of crypto and blockchain is just all about like whatever it takes to pump my bags and then everything else dwindles away. And now you have people that are like rooting for BlackRock, rooting for governments, rooting for but I'm like, yo, where did this conversation start? Because when I did the research and I look back in 2009, 2010, it was like this anti-disestablishmentarianism vibe with crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain. Now it's like all about like, I want every big institution to buy this stuff and I get to ride the wave and I'll make all these millions of dollars but you don't really benefit actually. Like it's just inflation and like I don't know, it's just a weird kind of thing that I don't think people even
This is
understand what they
why
want anymore.
this is why I laughed when you said, "Should I even bother?" Because when you really look at how the chips are stacked, not everyone knows fully what's happening, but at the end of the day, everyone wants their check. You know what I mean? And so that's really where they have most of us, if not almost all of us, is that if people still have this idea of hope or this idea that they're going to get a payout for what's happening, then they're okay with the Larry Fink. They're okay with the Orange Man in a way. And it might be that the makers of this system that are running this behind the curtain know that, because there are also big guns behind this whole currency system too. And it's like, what individual wants to go up against that? So it's tough. It's a real unfortunate thing, because all these assets going up mean 99% of the people are poor. That's literally what it means. And I think you and I keep coming back to that point, but I don't think it's a part of the video that gets listened to, which is why you and I share this, like, oh, why do we even bother? They just want to hear
Yeah.
the bag. They just want to hear about their bags going up, and that's fair. It's fair when you got mouths to feed, when your purchasing power is dwindling, and you start to look for solutions. And maybe that's alts, maybe that's a second job, maybe it's social media, maybe it's OnlyFans, maybe it's whatever you people can think of. There's a limited perspective in terms of what's possible for most people. And again, that's why you opened your university, right? That's why people like yourself are trying to reach out to leaders and kind of help shine their light in ways to help people wake up from really its perspective and its permission, man. I think a lot of people do not have the idea of what's possible. They don't understand how hard they're being, again, excuse my language, how hard they're being fucked by their own governments that they believe
Right.
in, and these institutions that, they pledge allegiance to and they look up to and all this stuff. And, part of what we're living through is these things crumbling down, which is very hard. It's very hard to, these are tough pills to swallow for a lot of people because then it becomes you have to acknowledge, well, where do I go from here? Oh, there's no one really to help me. Who can help me? It's a bit of a minefield. And so, yeah, you and I having gone through it and being on the other side of it, I think it helps us have some sympathy, but at the same time, it's part of the story you and I are living, and I think you and I both we've grown past the level of judgment, and it's more of like a amusing observation and just sharing because who knows how things play out from here, really. There's really two ways things can go. Really, really terrible or really great. We're definitely in the fourth turning. We're definitely heading towards an event or series of events in which
Right.
there's a new America, there's a new world. This is what that's how World War II shaked out. And so I'm holding out that it's positive and that people learn more and that people demand more out of their leaders and demand more about even just from themselves in terms of what they think is possible. But I've come to the realization that starts with me being as honest and as upfront about my experience and what I'm observing as possible, and hoping that inspires people to do the same. Because if we're just going to keep lying to each other, then we're definitely fucked.
Yeah.
If we're just lying to each other and waiting for a check, and oh, there are no files. Okay, like if we're just going to keep doing that, then yeah, it's not going to end well for us.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's why I'm very grateful for this opportunity, even though I created it for myself, but the risk was worth it, and I hope that inspires everyone else. Like I bet there's many people listening to us right now, and they could sense a confidence here, and that confidence is actually what you need now more than ever. And again, it's not me trying to say I'm right about anything. It's just me trying to say that like you have an authentic, genuine code hidden within you, and you need to embrace that, even if it burns people. Like even if it makes people not really feel so comfortable around you anymore. If it makes people feel like, oh, you've changed, fuck them. Like you need to become excellent now, like yesterday. In this world that we're moving into, like it's facts. And you could tell there's a distraction everywhere you turn, and there's a distraction in our palms all day. So this is a fascinating time because Actually, it's one of the big reasons why I don't create too many YouTube videos. Why I wait maybe a month, sometimes two, to put out a video. Because I'm like, there's a million other people saying all the things that I could be wasting my breath on. I have nothing interesting to share right now. Like, I'm gonna wait till I have something that's worth it. It's like creating music. Like, if you were signed by a label and you had to produce 4 albums in 4 years, I guarantee you by album three, unless you're like surrounded by talent and really fucking inspired, like if you got rich on album two, album three is probably going to be unrelatable bullshit, like talking about nothingness. But your first album was probably incredibly relatable because you were at the bottom or whatever was going on. But that's the typical thing we see, whether it's a rock band, whether it's a hip hop artist, a DJ, who cares? And that's kind of like,
What's
I,
inspiring the action, right? Are you writing again to express yourself? Are you creating to express yourself? And is that what people fall in love with? And then you get a contract which has certain demands where you must produce X amount of albums. Then your intentions are different, and then it all sounds it's all going to be coded with what you're coming from because this is ultimately a mental construct that we're living in,
that's
right? So
right.
the mentality and the heart and the vibration that people are coming into things with, it's going to permeate what they're doing. It's going to infuse it, right? It's almost like, like putting a drop of oil in a dish. It's going to coat everything. So if it's just a money chase, that's what it's going to taste like. That's what it's going to feel like. That's what it's going to sound like. And I think part of the confidence that might be coming from us, it has to do with the fact that we decided to chart down a path that is a path of really being honest with ourselves and seeking a sense of freedom that really is based on a deep understanding of the things that we've shared. I've learned some things today about Mercury retrograde that I didn't know, and you don't call yourself the financial astrologer, right? Again, these are all labels, right? It's not
Yeah, of
something I
course.
have an ego about. I love these calls because I learned from you, right? And hopefully you learned from me as well. These are they're markets, right? It's sentiment, it's humans. We're studying each other, we're learning about ourselves, and so I think that it's really the humanity in us that that's what makes art and that's what makes life great and makes it interesting you know and again this permission concept, right? This idea that we have to be full poor, or we have to let government treat us this way, or finance is too hard to figure out. These are thoughts. These aren't things you have to identify with. Nothing really is.
Right.
Nothing me or Waters is here saying are things you have to hold as gospel. They're things to play with, like instruments, and then see what music you can make with your lives, really. You know, if you like alts,
100%.
if you don't like alts, if you like CBDs, you like the Orange Man, you want a control grid, you like vaccine passports. If you miss 2020, who am I to tell you not to feel that way?
Right.
But what I
Yeah, and
can
I
say is, if you didn't like it, maybe you want to take advantage of this bull run because 2026 and 27 is probably going to be tough the way, the lockdowns were tough. There's probably going to be another manufactured global event because that's just a political archetype that humans do. We've always done it. When people want to, grab control or maintain it, they create false flags. It's a thing. It's in the history books, you guys. So they're not going away. They have meetings, whether it's Bohemian Grove, wherever. They'll change the names. They'll have it somewhere else, but they're trying to manipulate us. There's big money in it. There's power to be lost if they don't, right? And so part of what it sucks to talk about it because a lot of you are going to be like, no, that's not true. My vote matters and all this. Okay, that's fine, But if any of this is relatable, that's part of why we're sharing this stuff too. Is for those who are like us and share similar mindsets. Maybe you went through 9/11 similarly, like holy fuck, or maybe 2020 was your awakening and you're feeling like people are just lying to you about what's going on. That's a part of why we share this stuff. It's a different perspective on how two people have approached what they saw in the world and how they're making their way through it. Is okay, there are people who are manipulating the markets to live a very free life and to really, fuck with it, others. Why don't I use that knowledge to live a free life as well and see where that leads me? And that might mean that me or Waters aren't doing this forever. Who knows what that looks like? But right now, the expression is this, and like you said, man, I'm grateful for it.
100%. I think like what I'm learning about is the people that were not necessarily us, but like a lot of the time when you get into these communities and people are talking about these conspiracies or whatever, like you learn something very quick that the reason why like the powers that be, the apex predator or whatever you want to call them, like the reason why they're in power is because they like work together. And like I think it's so fucking wild. Like I'll post something on X and I like see the pitchforks and torches coming out. And I'm like, this is what they want. Like they want us all like at war with each other, you know?
Absolutely.
Like so we're never at war with the actual thing. But then on the other hand, I was just thinking and like I don't want to bring another person who's not here into it, but just for the example, there's this one guy like Gary's Economics or something, like huge channel that blew up really big. And his whole
Mhm.
thing, I believe, is like just pointing out the fact that there's like this shrinking middle class and, like everyone's becoming poorer because of the way the system's set up. But like not one piece of advice I've ever heard from him on like how to create wealth or like how to generate wealth. And that's like another problem that I'm seeing from the educational space is like a lot of people are teaching people to make them more aware that they're fucked.
Mhm.
And like you don't need to learn how you're fucked, guys. Like you already should feel it and know it. Like so one thing I would say is, and that's where we'll kind of twist this conversation, right? Because like in the first 10 minutes of this conversation, we're like, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. Here's the charts. Boom, boom, boom. Like now some of the philosophy behind like what does this all mean? And when we get there, when those prices are up, like how are you gonna move? How are you gonna maneuver? Because it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account. Like if you're a shitty person, you're a shitty person with a lot of money, right? If you're just a negative person and you have like no creative essence inside of you and no desire to produce anything, then you'll just be a rich person with no desires, no passion, and you won't produce anything, but you'll have a lot of money. So like that's why this part of the conversation is so important. But just wanted to say that there's so much popularity right now from the financial side of social media where it's just teaching people how they're fucked. And I feel like we should all already get that part. So I would tell people like if you're gonna use your time, if you're gonna invest your time into social media, please try to avoid that kind of content. It's not me saying that those content creators might not have gems and some wisdom and perhaps some skills to impart in you, but like when it's mostly just the airing out the dirty laundry and telling you how much the world sucks and it puts everyone into this like super defeatist attitude, I feel like that will take somebody who's already like nearing rock bottom and it just won't give them the wings that they need, you know? And I think that's probably my biggest motivation for any time I step in front of this microphone is like, how could I ignite that spark in somebody to where whatever they think about with BlackRock or Trump or the Epstein client list or whatever, it's like, bro, who gives a fuck? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do tomorrow? What are you gonna do when you're done listening to this podcast? Because like they want you to just sit around all day and wonder about like how many bottles of fucking baby oil were found at Diddy's house. Like that's
Right.
what they want you to fall for. So one of the things I wanted to ask you now that I've shared that is like, what big event do you see coming? Because you sort of alluded to the idea that there could be a big event or a series of events. Is there something in your work that you've pinpointed, like isolated with the astrology stuff that has gotten you closer to an understanding of what that event could be?
That's a good question, man. I tend to look at the eclipse cycles for that and just where are the what we call the trans-Neptunian planets, all the planets after Saturn, basically, like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, like what are they doing? Are they in, let's say, negative aspect to any sensitive points, or are they harmonious? What's that really looking like?
Mhm.
And Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune are actually in like this kind of like trine sextile configuration, which is actually supportive, which I think brings a sense of like, all right, well, as bad as things might get, there's still kind of like like almost like a gentle blanket or something under the ear in case things fall or something. Just to speak metaphorically, but like there's something protective going on behind the skies with that. But with that aside, there's a lot of energy that has shifted from, particularly this year, from Pisces to Aries. So what does that mean? We've gone from, let's say, the last energy you can experience, which is a water-based energy, to the first energy you can experience, which is a fire-based energy. Right? So even just playing with that imagery in your head. We're thinking about like waters and endings, right? And then we're going from beginnings and fire. And so that transitionary phase now with also this new layer of now Uranus is in Gemini, Pluto's in Aquarius. Now we have some air elements at play too. So there's a lot of fire and air that we're moving into that's shifted away from more of this watery ending culmination stuff. So
Mm.
25 is starting a lot of new narratives. So just on a personal level, and people might be feeling this as of this just July, is are there new chapters in my life that I want to start? Is there a new direction that I want to push things? If you have strong, let's say Aries energy or Sagittarius or Leo energy, the way the fire signs are being activated, you might be feeling that quite a bit as a person. But the whole world will be in general
Yeah.
because of Saturn and Neptune moving from Pisces in particular and now into Aries. And the thing about Aries, depending on your perspective and depending on how it's impacting particular nations and people, it's a youthful energy. It's the first energy. It's a catalyzing starting energy. That's why I'm using the phrase new beginning. So not only can you start new things in your life, governments, countries, the world will be starting new things. And the thing about Aries being a fire energy, it's ruled by Mars. It's considered in the Vedas like a battlefield, like not, even the birth process itself, right? There's a bit of a struggle, not a bit of a struggle. It can be pretty nasty, right? There's fluid everywhere. There's contractions. There's pain. There's a lot of effort, right? The baby's even struggling to make its first breath. There's crying. There's an umbilical cord cut. You know, there's a lot of activity with new beginnings that can be a bit chaotic, but things end up balancing themselves out later. And so as I'm looking at how the energy's playing, that there is some support, there are some new beginnings, but there are also this element of warlike energies at play. We've talked a lot about how we're heading towards World War III. I just see a lot of those things moving in that direction. And I see a
Mhm.
lot of things moving into the direction of how do we use AI and technology to keep a grip on, governments and societies that are falling away or falling apart or at risk of falling away and falling apart. So that continues to seem to be the trajectory we're moving forward. I don't see it as much of like this whole climate change. I don't really see that being as much of the push, although we will have more environmental issues. I see the focus being more on technology and on people
Yeah.
being poorer and on our system falling apart and all the debts that these governments owe and them pointing the finger at each other, never taking responsibility for it, and
Yeah.
that leading to more escalating conflict and that making life more expensive and people being more
Right.
frustrated, people voting Democrat in 4 years thinking that's going to fix things, and then things become even more communistic and socialistic and more control gritty and 15-minute city-ish and that falling apart. And then what do we do from there? That's what I'm really interested in because I don't know. That's going to be a really whole new world, but I think we're just marching to that event.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think they need to replay cycles because it's part of their ritual. Like it's part of like what they signed up for in their contracts. So like they're just like players on the chessboard that are in the back rank. Like we can be, if you want to, consider us pawns, and those back rank players, like the queen has a lot of movement, but she can't move like a knight. So these more elusive players are kind of the ones that I think we're seeing more. And this is just kind of the development of the game more and more towards what you were explaining. And I think there's a couple of elements that we discussed in our first ever conversation. One of them was the sabbatical year, the 7 year cycle of the Shemitah. And people need to understand that the next election will be during that cycle. So
Cycle.
yeah, I believe that's very important as
Absolutely.
we're kind of talking more about we could call it short term. It's funny in crypto world, short term is like 5 minutes, but in the real world, short term is 10 years, right? Like in the real world. I know now because of technology that is not what I just said sounds crazy. You're like Waters, but in 10 years, like we're gonna have hover cars. And I'll say yes, sure. But what I mean is like we're still humans, bro. Like we still have like pretty long life cycles. And whether you are somebody who believes that our life cycles will be extended by technology or whatever, that's your opinion. But I think when it comes to the new world order, like the people who are running the world, 10 years, bro, is like nothing. they're
And
thinking thousands of years. So I just wanted to lay that out for everyone. Like, what am I talking about? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about looking at it from their vantage point, right? So they're the sniper on the watchtower, and they're looking at these 10-year intervals with cycles in between. Were you going to say something, brother?
that vantage point, I think, just understanding that you have an enemy you can't see, and that's the vantage point they're using. I think just that alone is something that most people, you know what I mean? Like, just the awareness of that is so important. Like, so when you ask me what would the event look like, I'm leaning towards war or cyber event, but it doesn't matter because if the public responds in a way to where those things don't work, I feel like they'll just try something else. Their viewpoint is still so
Precisely.
large where it's like, we need biometric data. What are we going to do to get that? Right? Oh, this didn't work. Let's try this one. Oh, that worked. Oh, we got the data. All right, what's next? Like that's how they're looking at things. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's a march towards their goals, which are very long term. And most people don't live that way. And I think it would be of a huge benefit to people if they did. If you and this is where some of the things like gematria and astrology can come into play because if you're completely lost in terms of what your purpose in life or what you're here for might be, Waters University, or it doesn't have to be me, but again, you want a qualified astrologer to really do this with you, or somebody's really qualified at esoteric and really help you understand yourself. But really understanding yourself is your response. It's on you if you choose to go down that path, right? But knowing who you are and being able to chart out, okay, in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, this is where I'd like to be or what I'd like to experience or see or do, and
Yeah.
working your way back from that. Oh man, like it's something that I think should be taught in schools. It's a way of looking at your life that is very, again, in terms of permission and perspective, it's very empowering because this is what they're doing. This is why we keep, as a society, keep losing to people whose view term and outlook is a lot more broader than us. And
Mhm.
like you said earlier, they're working together to do this. So who can you work with together in your life to play these long-term games and achieve these long-term goals that
Yeah,
are
yeah.
way more fulfilling than hey, my alt went up, and then you don't even know what you're going to do after that, which means you're also going to go down because you didn't take profits because you weren't prepared for your alt. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
long-term
yeah.
thinking strategy, you guys. It can really it's a very Saturnian topic during this
Yeah,
ceremony,
yeah. This is
but
why like I changed my way of talking about the global elite because I'm like, well, if I can't beat them, I know I can't join them because I don't have their bloodline, but I could study and observe them. And like the thing is like, yeah, a lion could take on a pack of like maybe three hyenas, but like 15 hyenas, good luck.
right,
Like
right.
so that's our possibility. Like we can be that wolf pack. Like why aren't we trying? Anyways, that's a side topic, but yeah, you brought up some great points and
Well,
getting
I
back.
know it's a side topic, but it's really the question. And the fact that we make it a side topic and we haven't done that is why society struggles the way it does because we're just losing to a stronger wolf pack. It
Yeah.
takes resources to fight, and when you do the math, you're like, I'll just pay my taxes. I don't want
Yeah.
to. That's what people do, right? It's very human. It makes sense. It's an economic
100%.
decision to go. I don't want to fight those people.
Yeah, like it happens to me
Makes
all the
sense.
time when I meet new people and if I'm with somebody who's like knows me and they're like, "Why are you talking with those people about these things?" And I'm like, "'Cause God's watching me." Like
Mm,
so if that hears me talking like this all the time and it knows that I'm not afraid, then I don't have shit to worry about. Like it's the
exactly.
people that are scared to have that conversation. Like that's most people, or they just don't want to accept that it's a possibility, right? But yeah, what I was going to share before about the 7-year cycle is the fact that we're coming up on one, and the cyclicality of these Chinese zodiac years is something that I've been putting a lot of my research time into. And we probably talked about it leading up to the year of the snake, which we're in now. And the main theme of the year of the snake is the United States goes to war. So when the U.S. bombed those I don't even think they're real, by the way, but like that event in Iran with their alleged nuclear bases, and it happened like last month. Like that shit ain't real, bro. Like I don't even think there's been any military occupying those bases for like 2 decades or something. So it's all horseshit. But the point that I'm making is is like that was a sign that there's something brewing that's getting the American people, like it's part of the test, right? It's the 9/11 sort of situation where they're like they could have done that for many reasons, but one of the reasons is let's see how they'll work together if we tell them to work together. So that was the patriotism, and that was like why 9/11 brought New York together a lot, whilst C-19 was like, let's see how much we could divide them. Let's see how much we could rip people apart. And it was like polar opposites in a way, but they achieved a very similar goal of like, how can we move people and control people and see what they'll do? And once they start to organize in an event where we want them to be divided, all we got to do is give them another, side quest. And that's what you were sort of alluding to before is like if their main plan doesn't work, well, they'll just do something else. Like during Obama, the swine flu thing didn't work. So they're like, let's just do something else then. And we'll still get you no matter what. So I feel like there's actually a parallel between Obama and Donald Trump's second term, where the people were so fucking fed up of George Bush that they were like, oh, charismatic, young, like interesting, well-spoken man, like who isn't a buffoon, sign me up. And meanwhile, like the destruction and chaos and horrifying, military atrocities just gotten more inflated during Obama. So everything they thought they were gonna get, they didn't get, but they got the character to come with it. And that was what the people wanted. And I feel with
That's
what
where
we just saw,
what's happening with Trump. 100%, man.
so people are blindly just going for whatever it is just because he's the one who's doing it. So the fact that he's creating effectively a CBDC and he's just telling you it's this
It's
stable coin bill, but it's like, guys, it's programmed digital money by the government. It's just a
under
CBDC. Like,
entertaining. It's
yeah,
literally,
grow up.
it's just
Exactly.
called, like, yeah.
Yeah.
But we have,
So I just to finish the thought, it's like what we're seeing in that whole thing is like we got to remember that their agenda is working really well this time around because people are very poor now. Like I'm not saying that net in a negative, like it just is what it is. Like
it is what it
people
is.
don't.
Sorry to cut you off. It's seeing the writing on the wall 4 years ago is why I started my own channel. And it's why I'm, to be honest, just disheartened that the cycles just play out the way that they do, you know. But that's why I enjoy talking to you, like, oh, somebody who gets it, you know, and somebody who's, you know, sharing that message with other people. But yeah, please continue, man.
Yeah, and I feel like we're actually in a very similar posture where we had the people just believing that whatever this man does must be good. It must be like for the betterment of the people and for the vision of our nation and insert like, positive, virtuous terms. And we do have to remember that the war escalated just more and more and more. So getting back to the pattern of the US entering war during the year of the snake, I think what just happened last month was proof of it. And then also on top of that, look at all the language that Trump's administration was using leading up to that event. Like they were pretty much at one point talking about how they were going to take over Palestine.
That's right.
Like
Yeah,
that's fucking crazy. Like they came out and just said that and the
right.
people like didn't say anything.
Statues of like a Trump hotel on there, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They
just
so
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 dis.
this is the yeah, this is the wild thing for me is watching people go from full-blown support to like cognitive dissonance but continue the support at and anyways, I think this is the perfect test like lab rat test subjects
It
to
is. Yeah.
perform another like Vietnam style deal where in 1965 when we were in the year of the wood snake, which we're in right now, the year of the wood snake, we had a crazy bullish market with one big correction in the middle. Now that
Mhm.
correction came in right around the eclipse season at the time in 1965. I could pull it up if you want. Let me pull it up so you guys have a visual and I'm not just talking. Because I know some people here might be like, I just want to see what the hell he means. So we're looking at the S&P right now. I'm going to take off all these moons because I know it's super distracting. Where I do this every year where I box out uh all the years that we're in. So 2013, year of the snake. Next year I'll do it for the year of the horse, etc. So I'm gonna just go to scroll all the way back to 1965. Hopefully my internet is on my side. It'd be a shame if it doesn't load up. All right. What's going on? Oh, I'm on the 4 hour chart. Apologies. This should work now. There we are. So 1965, this was the year that the US went to Vietnam. So you'll see right here, US gets involved in the Vietnam War. We were bullish, and then we had an eclipse season with a crazy correction. And look at this, dude. This is what the craziest thing. From top to bottom, it took 47 days. Now let me
Mm,
go to this chart over here for the S&P. This is going to blow people's minds. We're going to go to the top, February 19th, to the bottom, April 7th.
mm,
I'm going to go to the daily chart.
47 days.
47 days on the nose. Guess who's 47th president of the United States? Donald
Yeah,
Trump.
yeah.
Okay. Guess when the bottom was? April 7th, the 4-7 date. Like we live in a simulation. All of these numbers are coded. And on this exact date, we would write this internationally 7-4, seventh
Mm,
day in the month, in the fourth month.
mm,
Bitcoin hit 74K that day, and that was the lowest it's been since. Okay, so
mm,
that's just pointing out to you something that we'll call it a coincidence. So we had a major correction.
mm,
This inverse head and shoulders pattern broke out bullish. It was
mm,
all around an eclipse season. So we had an eclipse season. We know for a fact, everyone who watches this channel knows this. It was March 14th, followed by an additional solar eclipse, but not as powerful of a solar eclipse. Then we have a reversal recovery that is bullish all the way up until around November. But you can see once we made it to September, it's just kind of jagged chop to the upside. And then we had another solar eclipse here, which was our next big correction. I know it doesn't look like much. At the
yeah.
time, this was a much different market back then, guys. Like we didn't have tech stocks, we didn't have computers to quickly sell and buy. We didn't have phone apps like we have now. So these type of corrections that you see, they do matter. And the fact that it's around an eclipse season to me obviously means that it is important because the rally was just consistent up until that moment, and then we chopped sideways. And then we had one more impulse till the beginning of the year of the horse, and
Mhm.
it was just call it Chinese New Year. So this is like opening up my mind because we've been playing out this pattern so much. The obvious
I
difference is,
love this. Like I'm biting my tongue. Like I just updated my I do a yearly report on how I think the market's gonna play out, and man, like
nice.
it's some gold right there. Oh man.
Yeah, this is work that like I know it might
Marvel.
sound,
This is
it might
amazing.
sound,
I'm gonna bring you back on. We're gonna look at this in Q2 of next year. This is
yeah, bro,
amazing.
like let me see if I could turn
This is so good.
let me see if I could do this. You see this right here?
I see your site.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this was my year of the snake decoded that I released
Hmm.
back in January 28th.
Hmm.
And I'm talking about all these connections to the year of the snake and the ideas behind the patterns. Sorry if
You're good.
and bringing in the mythology, bringing in connections to the symbolism. So this is pretty dope. I do this every year. So the next one I'll do for the year of the horse is at the beginning of January 26th. I brought this up too. This is something to keep in mind because in December we had the year of the snake ritual with Japan. I think
Mhm.
Japan is a big part of the conversation with finance right now, with
They
everything
really
going on over
are.
there.
Oh, they really
Yeah,
are.
so keep that in mind, guys.
See what even
Um,
happens this September. There could be an issue in Japan's market that causes our a little pullback, but their market in particular is one to. It already caused an issue last July, but we're going to see more of that with Japan for sure.
Yeah, and then this movie, Leave the World Behind, I think it's giving us a lot of like insight into how the eclipse could be playing a role in the next big ritual. And
Mm,
this eclipse scene right here, where you can see it becomes a ring of fire eclipse, but from the moon. You guys got to understand then it's reversed. So it's a total lunar eclipse in that case because you're on the moon and you
mm,
see the United States of America flag, right?
mm,
So this to me had a connection with the snake ear because of these pamphlets that were flown out of that plane. And remember in that movie, you had all the boat accident. You had that big boat accident with the like tanker. It was something lion written on the side of it. But then not 24, but 2023, we were having all of those issues with like ships crashing into bridges, all
Right.
these problems with boats. And then this year, it's been all planes. And then you know the snakes on the plane movie. I didn't even cover that because I was like, that's too obvious. Like I wanted to cover something that I think is a little bit more powerful and like not as much of a meme. But yeah, the snake flyer I thought was very important and the death to America, all that shit. You know, after the event that just happened, they were writing death to America on the ground in Iran. And like that's a very disrespectful thing to do. Not that I'm offended, but like it's just like we're walking on your flags, the flag of Israel and the flag of America. So that's like all kind of stuff that was the vibe of this. And then I took every single year and I patterned it out and I broke down like how I see these years going and if there's anything cyclical that I could compare for the crypto market. And yeah, pretty cool presentation that I released because so far it's literally except for an alt season happening, it's all playing out. Um, but
You
I think I covered the Year of the Snake 1965
don't.
stuff, right?
What do you mean by that? You don't think an alt season will happen, or you mean alt season hasn't happened yet? And
No, I mean everything I've said so far, the US getting involved with a war related thing, the things that were going on with planes, like a lot of things that were going on there, and then also the idea of Bitcoin hitting 100K, but then having a correction around March and April tied to the lunar cycle. And then I also said, but I do expect Bitcoin to go higher after that eclipse season and before the September eclipse. All of that has happened. The only thing that hasn't happened yet has been an alt season, which was part of that decode that I do believe will have an alt season. And it makes sense for it to happen within this year of the snake. And that actually means that we can have potential to go up till February of 26. I am not saying I believe that, but remember the chart that I was just showing you guys, it showed that we did go up again to January, late January of 1966, which would be the year of the horse that would align with our year of the horse next year. Also, remember, Kamala Harris was born in the year of the wood dragon in 1964, and everything that was tied to that was negative. It was one of the ways that I knew she would lose that election. But anyways, I just wanted to bring up this final rally into February and then get out of here. That's a fucked up correction. So when Sam is saying that the bear market will happen in 26, like I agree with him a lot, and that's my exact analysis as well. I think it will be tied to specifically lunar eclipses for crypto. If you guys are interested in stocks, that will not be the same because stocks and crypto are not the same at all. And also another thing to mention is every single crypto has its own mythology that it's connected to, in my opinion. Where Bitcoin, in my opinion, is the son of Saturn, the son of Satoshi, making it Jupiter. Jupiter is the king of the gods. It's the orange planet. It rules all of this within the dome. And then you have cryptos that are tied to Mercury, Venus, etc. So I'm not going to go too deep into that right now, but it's just to let people know when they're hearing predictions or analysis and they're hearing a date and a top or a bottom, like you need to understand that everything has its own energy, right? Because it's tied back to a different, just like you could share the same birthday as somebody, but if they're 10 years apart or if they're even 10 hours apart or in totally different locations around the world, that could dramatically influence their future.
100%. This was awesome, man. Um, the amount of value in this, well, from a philosophical perspective and just the charts you shared, man, that last chart. If you guys know crypto, if you've been through cycles before, whether you bought that report of mine or what Waters is sharing there, I think I'm going to check out the 2026 version of that video when that comes out because clearly the things he's pointed out have come to pass. They're very similar to things that I've predicted, my researcher, Christina, other astrologers I know. So it's a different viewpoint on things that we're seeing play out. So again, the idea that there's a bit of a code, a bit of a matrix we're living in, you guys are seeing plenty of evidence for that. I know I am. And so I think it's very encouraging to know that there are things that we can at least look at to kind of chart, okay, where are things likely to play out in the future, and how do I orient myself in that? Because your life is it's a you story, it's a you movie you're living, and it's the most important to you, right? So it's really about how do I use this information to have the experience between me and God that that's ideal for me, and that's why we share what we share. Is we're on our own version of our own journey of that, and finance is a part of that. Dealing with apex predators and the pressure that they're putting on us, and us resisting that in our own ways is a part of our own story. And my brother, I really appreciate just knowing you and being able to connect and just share our viewpoints on not only the market but how we're seeing things. And always want to encourage you to continue doing what you're doing with the university and helping out people. So I think it's really important. The world needs more of that. And if people are inspired by that, there'll be a link in the description for you guys to check out more of his work. Anything you want to
I
add, bro?
appreciate that a lot, brother. No, I appreciate that a lot. I'm looking forward to reconnecting with you soon. We'll probably get you on for a round two in the university. I would love to talk to you more about your music journey. I would love to talk with you more about just life in general and mindset and all the things that you have going on. So, yeah, it's really cool to have this university where we step away from talking about crypto, and anyone who knows me, I try my best to make crypto just an aspect of my life, but it is not my whole life. And I feel like that's really, really important for all of you guys to consider as well, because I'm seeing this stuff is like stealing people's souls, man. Like
Look
even
at it.
people in my community that are really into the esoteric stuff, that are really into astrology, maybe decoding, like it'll bring you down a wild path, and it has a very gambling like vibe. So got to learn how to have the stomach and the mindset, but also a vision that's bigger than just getting rich, a vision that's bigger than just making money. You have to have something that's a little bit more honorable. So I feel like conversations we have definitely are going to inspire a lot of people to tap into that.
Awesome. Yeah. And again, you guys can check that out at the links below. Thanks for joining me, brother. And we'll get this uploaded, and best of luck to everyone. Take care.
Appreciate you, man. Much love.